Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our first fireside chat of 2026 with our talented speaker, Andy Lerma, Director of Creative Marketing Design at Disney Plus. I'm Vanessa, Resource Manager at BN, and also the Program Manager of the Flyers on the Wall. With us are Han, the Creative Director and co-founder at BN and the Program Director, and Andrea Genduza, the Designer and Animator at BN and the Design Lead of the program. We will dive into the topic an unscripted path to the creative leadership. Hannah and Andrea will ask some unstructured questions, and finally, we will open the floor for Q&A. You will find a form in chat where you can submit additional questions or about the ones you are most excited to get insights on. Please be ready with your questions in case we give you the floor so we can make the most of the chat time. Andy also will take time after this session to answer all the questions, and we will share his responses so everyone can see them, even if we don't get their questions live. That is very generous from Andy, and we really appreciate that. And now I would love to hand it over to Han, so he will be the moderator during this session.
Okay, so I am Hung. I'm the creative director at BN, and of course also the program director for the Flyers on the Wall program and initiative. Well, the first time that I met Andy was actually on a Zoom call with the Disney Plus team, right? And he was about to brief us on a project, and this was the first time I met this guy, and I was like immediately very intimidated by his tats. Come on, Andy, raise your arms up like this. Yeah, I was like, whoa, I'm gonna like, holy shit, I got no tats. I'm gonna talk to this guy, and he's the director of blah, 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 like, I was like, I don't know what to do. So, but of course, Andy put my mind at ease right away. I think what was really different was that he talked with empathy of a creative, not a demanding manager of blah, 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 right? He just talked like a creative. And then what's so cool was that his direction to us wasn't, you got to do this, you got to do that. It was all about trust and appreciation. And I think that was what made a big difference, right? To me, all those are the qualities of a true creative leader. So over the next 2 years, of course, we worked on many different projects, we became friends, learning more about one another. And one thing that really piqued my interest talking to Andy was just like how he got into the industry and to be where he is today. And to me, the question is he humble because of who he is and how he came up? And that's the theme for today, an unscripted path to creative leadership. And Andy, so let's start from the very beginning, just, of the unscripted part. Yeah. Tell us a bit about you and just how you get started.
Oh man, thank you. Well, first off, thank you, Hung and Ricardo, for letting me be a part of this amazing opportunity to share to the community of designers, motion designers, and all things design. It excites me, anything. And I remember the first time I met you guys, I was like, these guys are from the same cloth. I love it. Not only because they dress in black or because they're crazy talented, but the fact that they love to mentor and inspire and just really kind of and give back to the community. And that spoke to me, and I was like, these are my people. So with that said, I'd like to say it starts with like the mentorship that you first get when you first start, right? I had amazing like pillars of this industry that, let me give a little shout out to Kevin Bachman, to Christian Struzen, Greg Higgins, like Marco Blanco. I had a team of crazy, amazing creative directors that really kind of fine-tuned who I am today, and they shaped me to really understand what it means, because I went into this I didn't go to school. I just learned on the job. I was the guy that was spray mounting in the back, and I was like, and after I was done with my job, I was like, okay, what can I do to learn? Like, what can I mask for you? What else can I do? What are you doing there? Like, just being very curious, but not knowing what the outcome would be. I just knew that this is what I love to do, and I followed through with a passion. I luckily enough, like these guys, I guess they had that what do you call it, that patience thing, because when you're so new and green, I realized, I was like, wow, these guys were so generous and so just so kind to me, and that that resonated with me. And I said, from this point forward, I'm going to be kind for the rest of my career. And there's layers to that where you evolve in the chapters and how what kind really means to be a creative, and you can make it your own. So I immediately learned that from the very start. And it just, I don't know, I guess you could say I felt lucky because I had that opportunity to work with such amazing talent. But yeah, that's kind of like how it started. And I didn't start as a designer. I didn't know I wanted to be a designer. I basically was working on a TV show and I wanted to be a cameraman. Remember those 4 camera shows back in early 2000s or even the 90s? I was working on Herman's Head, Blossom, Empty Nest. It was just a wild shows back then of just like, I just knew it wasn't feeding me. So I was being curious, like what else is there? And so I found this opportunity to work with those amazing designers. So I think that covers it. And so we can move on to the next thing, I think, right?
Yeah. So Andy, you said that you did not start out as a designer, but you eventually became a designer. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I guess you could say I was an athlete artist as a kid. And so there was this, the coaches, the athlete coaches would be like, okay, that art stuff is not going to get you anywhere. Just play sports and that'll make you some money. And, they put that in my head that you're really never going to get anything from creating art, and this is like the 70s and 2000 or 80s. And so there was really no computers back then. There wasn't animating or any kind of design. It was just everything was tactical and hands-on and airbrush, right? And so to them, that didn't really amount to what a future would mean. So I guess you could say after years of sports, I realized this isn't really what I want to do. I want to follow my heart and I want to follow my dream, which is, and it almost gets me a little emotional to think about it because that was the pivotal point where I made a decision to follow and do something for me at that point. And that's when I started to explore what that meant with that artistry, because I didn't know like I wanted to be an artist at that point, but I knew that I wanted to be in some sort of entertainment of some kind. And then I remember I was at a party and I found this thing called Photoshop, and I was like, what is this program? I was like, you can put heads on other people. It was just mind blowing. It was like, I think 1997, where there was like one layer, I think back then.
What version, Andy?
I think version 1, I think, where you can only make like 2 layers. Yeah. It was, and I discovered it, and I was like, whatever this is, I want to do it for the rest of my life. So I figured out like what path to get there, to get this job, and I was like, oh my gosh, they have jobs that revolve around this program. This is amazing. So I didn't, of course, get the job right away to dive into the program. I had to work my way up, where like I said, I was in the back mounting posters and cutting boards for like, I don't know, 8 hours a day, or burning CDs because we had no servers back then. It was just everything was on CD-ROMs. So it was a very lo-fi job, but it got me in the door to realize I started to be like, and this guy named Christian Struzen was like, hey, I think you're pretty good at what you do. You want to be my assistant? I was like, yes, I would love to. And so it just, from that point forward, he saw something in me that didn't know I had. And he helped me build that confidence of like really kind of seeing that I guess you could say I have the drive to learn and keep building off of that, because I wasn't born a designer. I think it's very formulatic, where you can learn into like how to master design. And so at that point I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn so much from this guy and from this team. And so that's when I really kind of dove in deeper. Like I always like to think of my life as a bunch of chapters. And at that chapter was very like, just explore and be super curious and just stay late and just do whatever they say, and work for free, because it doesn't matter, because I'm getting paid to learn. That's the way I looked at it back then. And it was just a different time too. It was, like the early 2000, or I should say 1998. So it was just, I guess you could say I was hungry to learn. So, and then I just everything on the job. And then I realized, I was like, maybe I should go to school for this. So I started to go to school, at this Learning Tree University and some other small just communication certification schools. And I realized, I was like, wait, the guys I'm working with know a lot more than these professors, so maybe I should just keep learning from them. So that's what I did, is I just continued to learn from them, and I used that as my school. And just like after my 8 hours of work, I would work another 6 to 8 hours just like on projects with them. And then it just never stopped until I learned enough, until that 10,000 hours of you master something. And that's when I was like, okay, I think I can fly from the coop and just start designing at this point. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Andy, I think there's a part of your career that not many people here knows about. Is like you worked a lot on key art posters. And you actually have a course on making space, teaching the community with disabilities about how to make key art. And I've seen a talk on YouTube called "From Disability to Creative Superpowered," Andy Lerma, Global Design Lead at Netflix. So before you came to Disney, you were at Netflix doing that. Can you talk a little about this part of your life?
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Somebody asked me to do a podcast and talk about accessibility, and I was like, of course, let's talk about it. And being dyslexic, I was very honest and open about it. And after going public with that, I guess I could say I became kind of a spokesman for of that community, in that sense, where to show like you can lean into your superpowers and not let it affect you on and so I started to let's just say own that part of me, instead of disarming it or being afraid of it. I actually started to say, okay, this is a part of me that maybe I could do something with. And then teaming up with Melissa Salazar and Lerma, from Netflix, they said, hey, would you be interested in doing and making space and doing a 5-series course on how to build key art? And I was like, well, you mean like I can consult? I was like, because I'm not the camera guy and I don't want to do in front of the camera stuff, and I definitely can't write a script. And they're like, well, that's kind of what we're hoping you can do. And I was like, oh wow, this is like that new chapter where I get to challenge myself to do something different, right? So I sat and wrote the script the best I could, and this producer kind of helped me formulate this amazing series of how to break it down into lighting and what composition is, and just the history of key art. And I remember myself, I was like, I am not the talent that speaks in front of camera, but that was like, this is that opportunity where I get to challenge myself. and it was like it was a lot of work. In fact, it probably what gave me appendicitis, to be honest with you, because I was so stressed. But that's another story. But I was doing this on the weekends while I was working, on seven different titles, and so it was a lot of work. But it definitely I did it from my heart, and it paid off. And we created a workshop where giving opportunity to the accessibility community, whatever your accessibility disability is, you can have your opportunity to create key art. And so with that series, they kind of learned what it was and what it takes to build key art. And so it was pretty fantastic. In fact, I got a lot of amazing outreach from that, and just like and it felt like it really touched the hearts of a lot of people, or being afraid, or them being honest with me, like, I didn't know who you were, because I am too. It was like a lot of that. So and I just realized, I was like, that's when I really said, I'm going to lean into authenticity from now on. And so, like I said, it's chapters where I didn't know that would have a lot of empowerment, or not knowing what it served, but I just know by being myself that, it inspired others. And just with that, it just was like, oh, that's kind of simple. Just be myself, and the rest follows. So, but of course, continue to grow, and personal growth and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was an amazing experience, and it's still, I think, up there today on making space. And I think they even developed a program called the Otis program with Netflix and the Otis team to build an opportunity for also inner city kids, or people that don't have the opportunity to or access to a school, or can't afford a school like Otis, and they brought in 18 students that to build their career on how to build key art and actually editing as well. So it's just amazing. I didn't know like one thing would lead to the next. It's just, and then next thing you know, I'm talking to Don Bailey and Gravelis, Kenny Gravelis from these amazing agencies, and we're teaming up to make this thing happen, and just to watch these lives change right in front of you. It's just been absolutely amazing. And all 18 kids graduated and got jobs, so it was just like an amazing experiment. I think that's going to continue as well. So, but yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a quick lesson on, how to be yourself and build a network of like-minded people around you.
Absolutely.
I want to, do a little role playing here. When we dial the clock back to where you were a designer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say, okay, you transitioned from being non-designer to designer. You got some mentorship going on already, so you already got some experience. I would say if I put a timeline, this would put you about a year before you became a leader, of a manager in position. I'm gonna pass it to Andrea. He's gonna pretend to be in your shoes at that point. He's gonna ask you or himself that question, and you can answer it. Yeah. Okay, Andrea, go ahead.
Thank you, and hi, Andy. So, if you could pick one skill or trait in a motion designer that money can buy, what would it be and why?
Can you say that one more time? Broke up.
If you could pick one skill or trait in a motion designer that money can't buy, what would it be and why?
Yeah.
Wow. Really?
So it's more like a question you ask yourself, Andy. Like, if I could pick one skill or trait that money cannot buy, what would it be for me and why?
Wow. It's so, I mean, I guess it's different for everyone, but for me, it was believing in myself, and because I remember that day where I was like, I hit that, like, oh my gosh, we all like lack confidence as creators, right? Or at least, that's the default button I think that we kind of have as we go into design, because we're defensive. We're worried about what other people are going to judge. And as soon as I welcome feedback and actually built the confidence of what that feedback meant, that's when I think you could say, let's just say the matrix happened, where I just saw everything for what it was. And it literally allowed me to be more collaborative and understand that it's a we game, not an I game. And so I think that's where it transformed and built this, like, I don't know, I guess you could say it's a lot easier. I mean, because early on your career, you're kind of like, you're guarded with, ownership, and you want to own this because that's how you get your opportunities, through what you create. But I think through times have changed, and it's definitely evolved. And I think I kind of evolved with this new belief system, where it's definitely we versus I. And so I think it's adopting that is again transferable. So I'd say just like letting go of the I and going into the we.
So no ego.
Yeah, absolutely. No ego. What is it? No, my amigo, no ego.
I love that. That should be on a t-shirt somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Andy.
I have one last question before we open up the floor for questions.
Yes.
And you guys, Vanessa and Andrea is going to help me kind of coordinating all the questions and who should ask. Whoever have a questions that's chosen or voted and are on this chat, please be ready when I ask you to jump in and ask it yourself. Yeah. So my last question, Andy, has less to do with the work, but talking to you, I would love to know about this. How do exercise and meditation play a role in your routine, play a role in who you are as a creative?
Love that. I mean, again, here we are with like the chapters. Because if you look at my, like, who I was 15, 20 years ago, if you asked me like, hey, can you wake up at 6 a.m. and think about, your meditation and work out, and I would be like, no, that's not me, and I don't need that because I'm here and this is what I can do. Very limited on my belief system on what I was open to learn. But after you transform and your willingness to be open for new ideas, that's when opportunity kind of, I guess you could say, reveals itself. And, you know, as they say, that when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And so I think just after reading this book, The 5 a.m. Club, I was like, oh, there's some good stuff here, because it isn't necessarily on a creative standpoint, but it changes you on how to build your mindset for the day as a creative. And I didn't know like what you can do for preparation. I used to think like, oh, just, you know, drink a cup of coffee. That's all I needed for my creative day. You know what I mean? That's really all I needed for the first 10 years. I'm like, I just need coffee. Yeah, you know, that works. But now I have to get up not have to, I love to get up at 4 a.m., sit in bed and meditate for a second or for 10 minutes. And then I pursue to, you know, get to where I need to be, which is work out, and then walk on the treadmill for like an hour, and then, you know, at least run 2 miles or at least a mile and a half, and then work out. So it's really kind of setting myself on the best version of me that day. So I really do how I'm going to show up, because they say like what leaders make the weather in the room. So now it's up to me to show up to the best version of myself for my team and the people around me, and for my manager too. It's like, you know, I got to be open for his feedback, you know, because I'm very receptive to open for that. So it's more about what I'm doing for me and self-care before I even start my day. And then everything just kind of falls into place on, wow, that didn't, it's pretty noisy today, but I don't feel it because I took care of myself, because I have you know, that shield of knowing that I'm calm and collected, and I'll have all the answers. I was telling my wife the other day, I feel locked in because I get to work out so early. And it literally, what I mean by locked in is just like you have, because, you know, we're in the business of problems, and finding solutions is like it's a daily, I think, you know, we make our finding solutions is always what we're doing. So I just tapping into that is probably the most important part. And I realize having access to that immediately is just by setting the tone for my day, and that helps. So hopefully that made sense.
Totally. I mean, I know nowadays your day is filled with meetings back to back. So in a way, physical fitness prepares you for mental fitness, right? It's a marathon of meetings all day. So
it is. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. We're gonna switch and go into Q&A mode. Right. We got a good 25 minutes before we, you know, stop. So, you know, I'm gonna open up the floor, and we're gonna try to get questions in. So those of you, I'm gonna pass this to Andrea to lead, and then we're gonna take turn to see who has a question. We call that person out if you are here.
Okay, the most wanted question is from Ray Thompson. How do you remain so unflappable through all the twists and turns of the project?
Love that. That's just, again, no ego, you know, really letting go of like what the outcome will be, and focus and just scale out or zoom out and realize it's like, again, it's a we, you know, and you know, like, cause I think when you let go of that and you realize that the outcome can come from, you know, a coordinator or even your manager, or, you know, and just, you know, I think, Hung, you were just saying that at dinner the other night, how some of your ideas come from not even the creative team. And that's the best outcome, is knowing that everyone is creative and everyone has access to it. It's just if you give them that opportunity. So just not being rigid and just staying, you know, in flow and letting everyone be a part of the opportunity. And then you create this like synergy between everyone. So it's just the bottom line is just letting go of the ego and just not staying connected and taking things personal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. The second question is actually for a creative leader. So from Valentina Itube-Lagrave, what question do you have for a new creative leader who needs to lead with authenticity, but has previously had the trail weaponized against them? How do you balance being real with the need for professional self-protection? So this is a creative leader asking you as another creative leader. Yeah.
Great question. Wow. And leaning into authenticity is like, how much do you want to stay transparent, and I think that's because being authentic is just, it's not wearing your t-shirt that, that says something that is inappropriate on a shirt, you know what I mean? It's more or less like how you show up in a room yourself and just not change who you are, whatever environment you are, and actually staying humble at the same time. So it's really kind of a balance. I always like to say, like, for me, it's all about gratitude. When I'm living in gratitude, I know that I can be as authentic as possible because that's who I am. And so now everyone knows me as like, oh, that's the gratitude guy. I'm like, that's a great, I'll take it, And so I think just if you just lean in, for me, it's more about just like leaning into the version you are that is humble and grateful at the same time will allow you to be in any room, with however you show up. And that's what's worked for me is, and also not worry about judgment, you know what I mean? It's really kind of like just worry about your own self and do your thing and do your best. And that's really all that matters. And no one can really, have a problem with that, if you know what I mean. So I think that helps, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Wait, Hung,
Juncho,
can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Absolutely. Is that Nicole?
It's me. Hi. Because you are so nice. And I feel like in a big corporate world, that can be taken advantage of. Like, how do you be so kind, but you kind of also need to have a guard up? Or maybe you don't. Tell me about it.
I mean, that's you bring up. I just heard this yesterday. I was like, Andy, I think you might be a little too kind. And I mean, in a good way though. It's because, I was explaining to him a scenario and I always ask for feedback. Well, what's your thoughts on this? And he's all, and it's a balance, I mean, yes, I am probably too kind in most scenarios, but for me though, it's a better way to be than it's what's natural for me. So for me, it's just like, it feels comfortable for me, you know what I mean? And maybe it puts me in positions that probably that don't happen to everyone, but I also get to see a side of life that not everyone gets to see. You know what I mean? I get to see people open up to me like I don't think other people get to. So I see things that for me, like give me like humility and gratitude, and just like it fills my soul to lead that way versus the other way. So I guess you could say, Nicole, it's just like my natural default. It's what I know what works for me, and it's kind of what's really working for me. So that's why I'm leaning into it more than ever. It's something, it's a balance though, you know what I mean? Because you can be overly nice or just say, yes, I'll do that. And then you're on like 10 different things, because you said yes to everyone. So I think it's just a matter of like how to say no at the right time as well, and that's something I think it's always a work in progress,
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Juncho, it's your turn for your question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy. My name is
Hello.
June. My question is, how did you make decisions when there wasn't a clear next step?
I love this. Now, when you say decisions, do you mean on my career or basically on creative choices?
I kind of meant both, both
Okay.
creative and then career, because
I love
that's
I love
how I feel these days.
Yeah. Great question. In fact, this was something I was like, man, I remember that day where I had to bet on myself, and I finally said, because managers will tell you you're not ready, or people in the world will be like, yeah, you're good, but I don't know if you're ready for that. And so that's when I decided to really kind of, okay, I did a lot of self-reflection on what I can do to change the areas that would make me more likable or more presentable, or what are the areas that I can improve on. And so I constantly was self-reflecting to get to that point to where I was like, I wanted to stand out, you know what I mean? But also be on solid ground. So it's just literally taking that chance to bet on yourself and believing in who you are is I think and then whatever the outcome is, accept and then reflect, and I think that's where I just started to really kind of like, oh my gosh, there's so much growth here. And this is where, you get excited about the unknown because you don't know what the outcome is, but you do know it's going to be something interesting where you can either learn or grow from. So for me, that's what it's all about. And then as far as from a creative standpoint is like, you may not have the best answer for the creative choices, you know, and so, you know, if you look around the room and you open up that room for people to feel comfortable to give their input, that's when the best, let's just say the best situation or the best scenario for the creative can come out that way, you know. And if you're by yourself, that's a little bit of a challenge. If you're a freelancer where you're working at home, you know, where you self-evaluate, but then that's where you can socialize something with a friend or with a fellow colleague that's working on, like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? You know, I remember earlier days, I used to be really afraid and guarded with like sharing stuff because I was afraid of feedback or what they would say, or, you know, and now I'm like welcoming it, like, no, tell me how we can make this better. And it just elevates your thinking that way always. So great question.
I see. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we have like a couple more questions. If people are here, then I will let them ask the questions, and then we switch to live questions. So basically, if you just raise your hand, you get into a queue, and then you can ask. Okay. So Dale Pittman, your question actually stopped me in the track, and I posted it. So Dale, if you are here, please ask your question.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, I'm Dale, Andy. I'm grateful for your time being here and for answering these questions, genuinely. You maybe touched on this already a little bit with some of your other answers, but what's the biggest sacrifice that you feel you made to get where you are? And more importantly, why was it worth it?
Man, this is a great question too, Dale. Like it's really about putting in the work, you know. I remember at one point when I had my 9-to-5 job, but I was also trying to build my equity with how I designed and how can I improve. So I would take on weekend jobs, and because I wanted to learn more and grow more, but I also wanted to build my network. And the irony is, like, I was working on the weekends with a person that got a job at Netflix, and that's how that whole thing happened. So you just never know where things are gonna, opportunity will reveal itself when you're kind of working that extra, you know, that extra effort. And so for me, it's a really kind of always putting in the work. It's and doing your best always. And I know sometimes it's hard to give up your weekends or, you know, extra time during the day. It's just that there was years where I never clocked out at 6. I worked till 10, or, you know, in our business too, we kind of, it's just the norm to work 10, 12-hour days, you know. And so I guess you could say just leaned into that and just accepted it, you know, and probably sacrificed a little bit of some family time, or a lot, you know. It's what we do as designers, I think, is just giving up that you know, personal time, but knowing that eventually there's going to be a payoff where, you know, you're in a position where you can actually, you know, manage your own hours or manage a team to support you on your needs, and then you can have flexibility to spend time with your family and then check back into work. So it's really kind of I guess you could say, just bottom line is just put in the work, right? So yeah, great question though. We're getting through all these questions. I love this.
I think Kelly is not here, so I'm going to ask the question for her. I think this is kind of a good last question for the list, and then we go to live. What moment was the turning point that shifted your career from a creative contributor or designer to creative leader? And do you have any advice for other BIPOC hoping to step into more leadership roles in their careers?
Wow.
So I guess there's 2 questions.
Yeah.
What was the turning point from shifting from creative contributor to creative leader?
Great question. You know, I remember, like, it was like 15 or 12 years in, and I love to make. It's just, that's part of it's just like, it's just so rewarding. It's so like, it feels good to make, and that's the part where I just, like, I love to make. And the hardest part is letting go that you're not going to be making every day anymore, or the 8 hours or 12 hours. So just coming to full acceptance, like, as a leader, your job is to inspire, you know, and rally your team, and have that, create that vision for them through you, if you know. And so that was probably the biggest challenge, is to grow in that space. But it's just accepting that, okay, this is who I am now. This is what I'm gonna step into now, and just own that, and just you know, because it is like, we're all, that's how got us here, is the making part, right? So it can be a challenge, especially on the studio side, because you know, everyone's usually a marketer and there's not a lot of hybrids like myself, but there are nowadays, there's more than ever versus like early on in the earlier days in like 2013, there was a handful only. And so I think at that point I realized it's just kind of accepting, okay, this is my new path and this is like another chapter and here we go. As a BIPOC leader, it's just, you're told no a lot. And I think don't let it define you. And then, you know, and that's when, and then you run into people that are, you know, willing and willing to take that chance on you. And I think that's where you just have to not give up. It's, you know, and just believe in yourself and have that self-confidence, like you are that person. And then the opportunity will reveal itself, whether it be the person you know or don't know, or the person that used to work with that gave an opportunity. It's the most wildest thing is I get to work with that guy, Greg Higgins, my mentor. He's upstairs from me as a VP at Searchlight, and I get to see him every day in the hallway. And it's just full circle. 27 years later, I get to see this guy walking down the hallway. Just amazing, you know? It's really kind of like, you just can't predict these kind of things, but it's like we get to like laugh and smile and talk about, you know, our lives about back then and now. So it's just like, and he was one of those guys that trusted and inspired. So, and here we are. So just follow your heart and it, you know, and passion and it as a, you know, even you don't have to be BIPOC. You could just be as a leader and as a creative, you know? And so I think that's a really, and don't let things, you know, like you said, get you down is the key, you know, just like look at it as an opportunity to grow. Yeah. Love
Very
that.
cool. Thank you for that, Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna switch to live Q&A mode for you. Just you guys who wants to have a question that you want to ask live, just raise your hands. I'm gonna call on Raymond first because he has his question in the chat. So technically, you're the first one. So Raymond, go ahead.
Hey, Andy. I don't know if you remember, but I cold called you over a year ago, and I was always moved by our conversation. And I really appreciated that time that you spent with me. But so I'm recently moved to the East Coast from the West Coast, and I'm just curious how you recommend connecting with the right people, whether it's networking events or creative spaces. But for somebody who's new to a creative space, what would you do in a situation like mine?
Great question. Well, Raymond, I'm glad we connected. It's just another example of like, you never know who's going to be in front of you, right? Or you never know who's going to be your boss, you know, or who's going to get the job. So that's why, to me, being kind to everyone is so important, or making the time for even anyone that wants to, you know, have a conversation with me on LinkedIn. I just made a pact to myself as being available for anyone that's willing to like have questions or a conversation. So thank you for pointing it out. You're just a perfect example of why it makes sense to have that conversation, because it touched you. It made a difference. It made an impact in your life, right? Because I don't think enough people do it in our business. So hopefully that creates some sort of like, I don't know, synergy between other leaders to really kind of be available for, you know, conversations. Honestly, just reaching out, just staying plugged into the community is just going to networking events, being kind, because people are attracted to being kind, you know, and they want to work with you when you're kind, no matter how talented you are. So I think what energy you're radiating is where people are going to be attracted to. So I think it's important for you to show up as a person that's positive and just, you know, grateful, and the rest kind of follows. You know, it sounds kind of silly, but opportunity always reveals itself when you're that person that everyone wants to work with, because you're not only talented, but you're easy to work with. You're fun, you're exciting, you know. It just, you make things easier to work on, to work with. So just tap into all events. You're doing what you're supposed to, which is reaching out to guys like me. And then, you know, if you reached out to me again, it's like, hey, do you know anyone? I would have probably said, yeah, I know amazing designers called Hung and Ricardo over at the end. In fact, I probably send a lot of people their way, but they're always willing to have conversations with, you know, people that reach out to me that are in the motion space, you know. So just keep reaching out to people. don't get discouraged because people don't answer, because eventually there's a guy like me or another guy like me, and then next thing you know, you have 2 and 3 and 4 connections, and then you're invited into events, you know, or you're brought into a project, you know, because you network. So it's really just building your network, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
David?
What's up, Andy?
What's going
How's it
on?
going?
How are you, Dave?
I don't really have a question. I want to comment and say that, you know, I've kind of been in a weird space creatively, business-wise, and just in general. So I want to say thank you for the stuff you said today, because something you said made the answers come to light. I knew they were in there somewhere. I just been sitting on the edge teetering, but now I know, you know, which way to go. And also, I appreciate the fact you talking about your meditation and working from a standpoint of gratitude. Lately, I've been in my Dr. Joe Dispenza bag, and I'm on that point with meditation where it's almost an everyday thing, and I'm just fighting, you know, the body and the mind telling me, nah, skip it. So you kind of reiterating that for me is like, all right, man, let's be real, let's keep doing it. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I will ask a question. How often do you get on the wheels of steel back there?
Oh, David. Well, first off, I'm a little starstruck right now. You're the man, and I love it, and I love your work, and I love your story, and you have touched me, whether with not even knowing me yet. Your story has absolutely just leveled me up. I'm all, wow. It's literally so thank you for staying strong and being you, and just finding the courage to really kind of to step into your creative. It's just absolutely like I inspire to be like you someday. Seriously. Thank you. Then Joe Dispenza, that's another, he is a pillar when it comes to understanding, like there's a walking meditation that he has that absolutely is mind-blowing. And I would do it when I'd walk, you know, in the neighborhood for like 4 miles, and he is an absolute like a rock star when it comes to like guided meditation. So he's definitely on point. The Wheels of Steels, that was something when I got to Disney, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have weekends free. I'm gonna, you know, and then not much of time free because it's spent with the wife, and not so much because I'm working, it's just because of the balance of things. And I didn't realize it was a commitment that takes a long out. I was like, I already have a lot of hours in one thing, and this takes a lot of hours. So it's like just a hobby, you know, for like weekends that are an extra day on the weekend, I, you know, to play with it. So yeah, I don't do enough of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, enjoy it when you can, man. I appreciate you.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much, David, for stepping up and speaking. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, Rogelio, I hope I say your name right.
Rogelio.
Hey, what's up, Andy? It's good to see you.
How are you?
Good,
So
good,
to see you.
good. Blessed. I do have a question for you. Have you ever felt boxed in by being known for one of your strengths, just one strength? And how did you expand your identity beyond that while still honoring what you're great at?
Wow, great question. Can I tell everyone who you are, Rogelio?
Yeah, of course.
Rogelio is one of the Otis graduates that I got the privilege to mentor, and it's just an opportunity where, you know, this kid was working at Trader Joe's because he didn't have the opportunity to. I'm giving your story, I know, but it's amazing. And he got in the program, and now he's got a full-time job at an agency. So believing and just not giving up is his story, and it's just kind of amazing. Like I said, I get inspired by getting that opportunity to mentor, you know, kids like you, or, you know, adults, I should say. Sorry. Yeah, man, it's how to not be boxed in. It's really kind of like not letting the situation around you define you. And what I mean by that is like literally like how do you expand yourself outside of your comfort zone? What is your stretch like assignments that you do? Do you, like, I always like to say, okay, I'm doing this right now, but what else can I do? What else can I learn? Because immediately when they see like, oh, I didn't know you can do that, because you're doing it on the side. It's yes, you're getting a little extra work, but you also are building equity in them going, you can do a lot of things that I didn't know you could do. So you're kind of creating osmosisly this opportunity for your managers or your colleagues, everyone to see that you're not only willing, but you're actually capable of doing, you know, the other projects. So when that opportunity comes around, you're like, oh, I know Rogelio, he was doing that like last year, and he does it really well now. And so let's give him that chance, you know? So it's just like, you just never know where roads are going to lead. It's just creating that path that, you know, the fork in the roads, you know, just creating those different paths for yourself. And that's just by raising your hand, staying curious, and just doing your best, you know? So you're already doing that. Just keep expanding, you know what I mean? And stretch. Do you know what stretch assignments are? It's just like doing things for free, or for like, yeah, I got this, let me take it on, you know? It's an extra, you know, like that script I wrote, I was like, yeah, that's not my thing, but I'll do it, you know? Because it challenged me, you know what I mean? So take on things that are challenging to you so you can grow as well, you know? Don't just do things that are comfortable and that, you know, you can just rest on your laurels, like, oh, I'm doing this because I can do it already. I'm doing this because I want to learn to grow into it, you know?
Thank you.
Got this.
That's
Absolutely.
reassuring.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You're on the path, man.
Allison,
Hi, nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
I'm interested in what you were saying about like making versus leading, and like how you had to like let go a bit of the making part to lean into the leading stuff. As a creative lead, knowledge of the making process is really important to guide creative concepts, process, and timelines. So as technology changes and tools improve, like AI and new software workflows, do you have any strategies you use to stay up to date on the making process, since you're kind of like distancing yourself and most of your time's probably allotted to like leadership stuff?
You're a great point, Allison. Wow. That's just it, is finding the time to stay connected, you know what I mean? And believe it or not, I still get into Photoshop on Fridays because it's like my day where I can dive into it, because it's like a less meeting Friday, but I still have impromptu meetings. But I'll make a point of, like, for instance, Rahel, I take on those side jobs to design still, because then I know that I'm still doing it. Because it's like a muscle. You have to continue to keep that muscle going. Also, I have to know how to guide and steer my team, you know, at least from me. Some leaders don't need it, but for me, I love to be connected and I love to talk the language of like what, you know, a gradient map looks like, or, you know, so they understand that I know their language. So for me, it's super important to, you know, have that. It isn't the only way to lead a team, because I know plenty of amazing leaders that are not makers, that are leaders, you know. So it's just whatever side that makes you feel comfortable is really the ultimate goal, is how you lead makes you feel, you know, and how does it feel natural. So there is no like perfect answer for that, other than like just kind of because like I said, I know leaders that don't tap into Photoshop, but they're like amazing when it comes to direction. I was like, that's really yeah, you said it, you know. And then and it's another form of not the language of a creative, but they say it in an executive way, and I'm like, that's makes a lot of sense. I get it, you know. And so it's really kind of again, it's what empowers you to feel your best, you know, to show up the best for your team. Hopefully that helps. If you want to dive deeper, I'm always available, because I love workshopping. Yeah,
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So this is going to be the last question before we close out. Courtney, please.
Yes. Hello, I'm Courtney. Hi, Andy. Hi, team. Just wanted to say thank you to you guys to putting this event on. You know, it really means a lot. I'm also someone who cold emailed you and you responded. So really appreciate you taking the time to connect. But my question, so you talked a little bit about your path to design and your natural sort of drive for learning. I was wondering if you could share more about integrating the marketing and strategy side of your work. And curious if you experienced the learning curve in that area as well.
Oh, wow. Really good. Courtney, great question. At one point, I remember I was like, oh, strategy, they're always so like this and that. And I didn't feel like it was aligned with creative, because our visions are kind of different, because theirs is built on matrix, or, you know, metrics that really kind of define what kind of demographic we're going for, really. And I remember I was like, I was really kind of like against it, or I was, I didn't like want to embrace that part of the process. And as I grew and I realized, I was like, wait a minute, strategies, it's the foundation of all creative, because if you have it, then you can really kind of launch wherever, you know, you need to. And of course it pivots because demographics change, or because they're, you know, it's doing better, you know, projectively. So but that's a great starting point, I realized, for all strategies. So for me, the first thing I do is build a very strong relationship with my strategy team and let them know how important strategy is and just welcome it with all hands and team up with them on all creative briefs, you know, and really let them have a big part of the creative process, because I feel like their vision is also a perspective vision, right? And what I mean that is like perspective vision is like not just the creative vision, it's somebody that's outside of a creative, because the truth is like 99% of the people that look at our work outside of what we do is non-creative, right? So it's good to get like the broad social perspective. So again, it's just like really kind of welcoming all strategy, and it's definitely something I learned in the middle of my career, because I've done my career in many different ways where I was like, I am not doing that, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm not that positive, and I'm not collaborative. This is my art, you know, and I was like wondering why I was hitting the dead end of things or not growing. And that's when I really started to say, okay, it's time to change on the way I view and the way it's just a lot of self-reflect. I guess you could say I went on a journey and I found my thing that worked, which is like gratitude and collaborative and just positive and just like lean into all those things. And here we are now. Like it's just kind of like, I guess you could say a lot of my career is kind of like progressively gotten faster or of growth the more I adopted those things as far as like part of my daily reprieves. Yeah. I do have one story, Hung, that I'd love to share to leave you all with this, and it's a little bit of a wow moment. Or when I got into the business, it was like 1998. I was, like I said, that runner on TV show Herman's Head, and one of the shows was Blossom. I don't know if you remember that show. It's so old, it just dated me probably. And I remember that wasn't my normal show, but I got to deliver scripts to that day for that show, and I had to go to like I think a few directors' houses, and I got to go to Disney. I was like, I went to the Disney lot and I saw the little like squirrels like on the ground. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I have made it. I'm on the Disney lot, and there's nothing better. This is like the best you can do right now. I was like, I literally was like in a bubble of like so much like I can't believe I'm here, you know. And I remember walking into the building where, you know, the little people holding up the building, and I remember looking up at that. I was like, one day there might be an opportunity here. You never know. Who knows? And I just put that in the universe, and you know, here we are now. Like I was at Netflix, and then this woman, you know, reached out to me and said, hey, are you interested in a job at Disney or at least interviewing? I was like, no way is this happening. And so of course, the first interview I was on was walking through the building that I was walking through 27 years ago. And I was like, what is that? Life is just so amazing. You know, I talk about full circle. I couldn't have planned that. I didn't have it in my bingo card of like, I will be working at Disney as a creative director. You know, I didn't have that, but I didn't give up, and I believed in myself, and here we are now. You know, and got the job offer, and I was like, I guess it's meant to be. So, you know, working with amazing leaders at Disney and just an amazing legacy studio, it gave me, like I said, it just gave me a fulfillment of like, oh my gosh, my dreams have now finally come true. So yeah, pretty crazy. I know. So
amazing story, Andy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Absolutely.
You know, I learned so much about a journey, you know, for someone who has, I would say, a humble beginning. You know, you did not come into this industry the typical path, but you kind of like threw it out into the universe, what you wish for, and lived with kindness the whole way. And, you know, you got to where you are. So with that, I'm passing it back to Vanessa to close out.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, so much for this valuable time. We really appreciate all your insight. We also want to appreciate the participation of the attendees. We want to share Andy's social, so you can follow up him on Instagram and LinkedIn. And finally, we will also want to invite you for the next Fireside Chat with Akiko, the 34-time Clio Award-winning art director. The topic will be One Picture from 1,000 Stroke. the process behind the key art that will happen on April the 16th at 9 a.m. PST. So we really hope to see you there. Thank you so much. And
she is legendary. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. I mean, that's as good as it gets. Akiko is like
yeah, she's gonna dive into just the process for our group. So that's gonna be amazing. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you,
Andy.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate everyone for joining.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day. Bye.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, you guys are amazing.
Take care, man.
All right, for sure. Bye.